Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. Lovely to see you all in your virtual boxes and the names of those who I don't see the faces. It's a lovely Thursday, Tubman Talks, and I'm really excited for the one we have today. So, first of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Dr. Bianca Beauchemin. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies, and I am also a member of the executive committee here at the Tubman Institute and the co-coordinators of the Tubman Talks. Tubman Talks is a space and a platform to share research and publications with audiences who are doing work related to or interested in Africa and African diasporas. The Tubman community is interdisciplinary, and we welcome a wide range of topics and backgrounds. Tubman Talks are intended to provide an opportunity for individual scholars to critically strengthen their own research by presenting it to others in the spirit of engaging in colloquial and in debate. Before we begin, I do want to start with a land acknowledgement. So I wanted to acknowledge our presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is governed by the Dishwit Wanspoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. In making this land acknowledgement, I honor and acknowledge the land and its people who have been here for thousands of years. In relation, I would be remiss not to mention the current genocide happening in Gaza and the catastrophic situations in Sudan, Congo, and Haiti. I think it's important to contextualize the repressive colonial and imperial oppressions that undergirds the current situation. Influenced by my personal Black feminist politics, scholarship, praxis, and movements, I recognize that my political commitment, mandates, and solidarity are bound up and intertwined with the liberation and self-determination of Indigenous people, as well as Palestinian, Sudanese, Congolese, and Haitian people. So today, I am incredibly excited to present my colleague, Ms. Violet Ferreira Sutherland. She is a PhD student at York University in the Gender, Feminist, and Women's Studies program. Her research title is Blockchain Technology and Cryptocurrency as Instrument of Decolonization, a study of racialized community in the Caribbean and diaspora in Canada. So we see that this is obviously a part of her research that she'll be presenting today. Violet holds MBA in finance from Western Michigan University, a master in philosophy degree in gender and development studies from the University of the West Indies, also a postgraduate certification in project management, and a BA in economics and history. Violet worked as an associate professor in finance at Northern Caribbean University in Jamaica and an adjunct lecturer in gender and development studies at the University of West Indies for over 6 years combined. She has also worked for over 10 years as a diversity and inclusion consultant for a variety of international development agencies, such as the European Union, UN Women, UNPD, CARICOM, and the Caribbean Development Bank. More recently, she finalized the National Strategic Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, which were approved in the Jamaican Parliament for joint implementation by the Jamaican Bureau of Gender Affairs and UN Women. Her talk today is entitled Blockchain and Cryptocurrency as Instrument of Economic Empowerment, a case studies of racialized communities in the Caribbean and its diaspora. So this research that she's going to highlight today explores the potential of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency as tools for economic empowerment and decolonization among Black and marginalized community in the Caribbean and its diaspora in Canada. It examines an online self-help group which teaches each other how to navigate complex technologies and investment strategies, empowering themselves to evaluate the merit of various fundamental cryptocurrency by investigating their real-world application, decentralized nature, consensus mechanism, and their potential to make it through regulatory frameworks as ways to identify undervalued digital assets for long-term investment strategies. Blockchain and cryptocurrency have gained attention as potential disruptors of traditional finance system, especially in the global south, where they offer new opportunities for financial empowerment through their peer-to-peer functionality that bypass traditional neo-colonial financial system that have historically excluded and ignored Black marginalized individuals. This research is situated at the intersection of colonial exploitation, racial capitalism, and finalization, which have created a global economic system of control that is entrenched with racial hierarchies within capitalist structures. It provides a framework to explore how these technologies might disrupt or create new hierarchical power structures that could replicate historical colonial assemblages of racialized financial system that perpetuate this north-south inequalities. Despite being touted as egalitarian, decentralized, and empowering for minoritized groups and individuals. The study applies Cedric Robinson's concept of racial capitalism and insights from Frantz Fanon and Donna Haraway to analyze the transformative potential of blockchain, but also their potential for being co-opted as neo-colonial weapons of domination. This research served as a critical representation of Black knowledge from the global South, contributing significantly to scholarly debates on local knowledge production here in the context of blockchain and cryptocurrency adoption. By focusing on how these technologies are understood and utilized within Caribbean and diaspora communities, the study critiques the dominant narratives produced by the global North. These hegemonic discourses often construct expert knowledges about the global South without really engaging with the lived experience and intellectual contribution of those within the Caribbean. So this research, therefore, not only enriches academic discussions and scholarly conversation, but also challenge the power structures that shape global knowledge production. I'm incredibly excited for this critical piece of work. So please all welcome, help me welcome Violet Ferreira Sutherland.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today. And let me just start by, as I said, just reinforcing what Bianca just mentioned, the title of my research being that of understanding how blockchain and cryptocurrencies can be viewed or targeted as tools for economic empowerment and the decolonization process. Now, I just want to introduce briefly the agenda that I have before me today. Of course, I will have a brief introduction, then I will go through defining some key terms that will be essential for all of us to keep pace with the content and be on the same page in understanding when we talk about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, what it is that we are actually referring to. Then I'll have a brief historical context, the research context. I will highlight the significance of the research, looking next on the theoretical and conceptual frameworks. Then I will briefly look at the research design and methods and the research findings and the future directions that I think might be a potential for this area of research. So throughout history, and I must apologize, I have a throat, some sort of flu thing going on. So my apologies. But throughout history, Black and marginalized communities have systematically been excluded from mainstream financial systems, whether through colonial policies or modern day economic structures. But what if new technologies could provide an opportunity to reclaim financial power? What if we can imagine a future where economic inequalities that have been engineered by centuries of colonialism are but a memory, where Caribbean people and their diaspora employ blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies as tools for economic empowerment, financial independence, and weapons against neocolonial economic disenfranchisement? This vision, which would once seem utopian, is becoming increasingly plausible, at least in the views of those people in the Caribbean and its diaspora who, in an online WhatsApp self-help group, are leveraging their collective knowledge and taking up the challenge to understand blockchain technology and to identify and invest in fundamentally sound, undervalued crypto assets that show potential for long-term appreciation. This group that I just described is the focus of this case study research. So yes, I'm going to quickly jump into these definitions, blockchain being the first. It says here that blockchain basically is a decentralized digital recording system. I want you to think of it as a system of a digitized system that records each and every transaction that happens, whether it's about finance, whether it's about supply chain. It's a way in which the system, the digital system records on a ledger, a digital ledger, all of these transactions that take place. Now, these transactions are monitored by computers we call nodes right across the world, thousands of them. So the blockchain is not a centralized system like a bank. It follows instead a consensus mechanism that doesn't require trust in any individual or any institution or banking institutions. Validity comes from the consensus of the nodes across the world as to whether or not a transaction is permissible on the chain, the blockchain. So when the blocks are filled, when there is consensus and a transaction is validified and a block is completely full, then it is time-stamped and is added to previous chains in chronological order. Therefore, we have what we call blockchain. Now, data on the chain cannot be altered. It's immutable. And it's visible to the network of nodes and are traceable. And so and they are in fact cryptographically preserved, which means that they're really very transparent, very sound ways of, it's a very sound way of tracking detailed information that cannot be erased without canceling an entire block, which again will have to be as a result of a consensus. So cryptocurrencies are digital money, digital currencies that operate on this immutable blockchain. Cryptocurrencies operate on a peer-to-peer, a decentralized peer-to-peer technology that is not like the blockchain controlled by any banks. So cryptocurrencies offers alternative systems of trust. It allows for remittances and investments without going through any banking system. Cryptocurrencies are traded online through cryptocurrency exchanges, and anyone with access to internet and a smartphone can purchase cryptocurrencies. The third and last definition that I want to have on the table is economic empowerment, because that's what this our research is about. How can people gain economic empowerment through blockchain and cryptocurrencies? Now, for me, economic empowerment is a complex dimensional process that focuses on increasing people's capacity and agencies within existing socioeconomic structure. So that process involves accessing financial tools, increasing self-determination through knowledge sharing and wealth building, and particularly to develop community-driven resistance. Now, the group that I'm focusing on are doing exactly that. They're teaching each other about the complicated blockchain technologies. They're identifying profitable digital assets. They are acting as their own banks by taking their currencies off the public chain and holding them in cold wallets. So they're actually answering each of the elements that I've just described as essential for economic empowerment. So I want to look a little bit at the historical context in which this research sits. Now, Black and marginalized community, particularly from the global South and the diaspora, have significant, as always, faced systemic exclusion through colonialism, racism, economic disenfranchisement. And today, these barriers, these financial barriers continue to manifest themselves through lack of access to banking for some of us, loans, lack of access to mainstream financial services. So the decentralized peer-to-peer protocol of cryptocurrencies allow excluded people to bypass the traditional institution and giving them a chance for economic or financial empowerment. Now, historically, people who have been excluded and marginalized from mainstream systems have always engaged in self-help groups to reclaim financial power. And we can think of the ROSCAs, the Rotating Saving and Credit Association, and the Caroline Hussein's Banker Ladies model, which are so the group that I am investigating is really reflecting the ethos of this traditional practice. Now, the communal focus that underpins these practices encourages self-reliance, communal financial support, as we think about the partner system, for example, in Jamaica. And these rotating saving processes have different names across the different islands, but the idea was to encourage financial independence and collective empowerment, and most of all, resistant to mainstream exclusion. So, the cryptocurrencies that we're accessing now represents the pattern that has been, culturally ingrained in our consciousness. Now, in terms of the research context, I'm saying here that mainstream theories of economics and finance are really challenged by a lack of sound, or insufficient, I should say, insufficient academic work on the social potential of emerging blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies. There has been limited focus on the social impact of these technologies, especially as it relates to racialized people in the global South. And even scarcer attention has been paid to the Caribbean context. And therefore, this research is geared towards beginning, at least, to fill that gap. So today, there is accelerated global interest in blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and we can see that through the development of what we call ETFs, which are exchange-traded funds that are traded on the NASDAQ and the General Stock Exchange. And we can also see the adoption of cryptocurrencies in the conversations that are being had in major countries around the world when they talk about using cryptocurrencies as part of their national strategic reserve. So cryptocurrency is not any longer something that's hidden and is to be feared, but is now being embraced at the highest level in many parts of the world.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I know you had slides and you're not sharing them right now. I just want
They're not?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Had gotten out. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. How is that? Let's see what's happening here. So let me try again. I am sorry. So can you see that?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I'm just going to push down to where I think I was. So I was at the point where I'm trying to talk about the research context, having completed the historical context for this research project. So let's see how we get this to move now without too much trouble. So in terms of the research context, I was saying that there is now a global recognition of cryptocurrencies, not as some sort of fringe element, but is now being embraced at the highest level in not only in large financial institutions like BlackRock and those large investment houses, but as I was saying, as it relates also to the government in some countries exploring the possibility of having blockchain as a potential cryptocurrencies as a potential reserve in their system, their economic system. So I'm trying to do this view so I can talk without. Okay. All right. Can you still see it? Hello?
Yes, you're good.
All right. So through these technologies, people who have been unbanked can now become more banked, and people who were underbanked can also become more, banking systems and opportunities are now becoming more accessible to them. So for people who were boxed out of current financial opportunities, investment in these technologies represent basically a new paradigm for economic empowerment. Because blockchain and cryptocurrencies are in fact unblocking economic borders and creating new pathways, and therefore this research is trying to pay attention to what people in the global south are doing. So unlike the centralized legacy financial system that favor the wealthy and well-connected, cryptocurrency opportunities are there for everyone with modest startup capital, as long as you have internet connection and a smart device. And the group that is the focus of this work is basically, as I said earlier, focusing on the currencies that have real-world opportunities that are currently undervalued. And they're taking this inspiration from the journey of Bitcoin that in 2010 was valued at $0.004, like four pennies, and today Bitcoin is worth over $103 for one. So the group is taking that as their inspiration in how they identify potential cryptocurrencies. They're really seeking a way to improve their financial status and generational wealth, because they know that selling their labor power, which has historically been undervalued, is not the way forward. So the truth is that blockchain and cryptocurrencies will be technologies of the future. I think we have come to realize that these technologies are going to rewire the global financial infrastructure, and therefore we need to be able to respond appropriately and to leverage opportunities that emerge from this kind of dramatic change, this dramatic shift in the financial ecosystem. So that has been one of the fundamental objective. But then there's also this broader cultural trend that has been driving interest in these decentralized protocols. So it's not just about the money, it's about redefining how power and value is distributed. And these technologies are hopefully going to challenge the hegemony of traditional financial systems. Now, I want us to bear in mind that it's not all rosy and gloomy and optimistic about this cryptocurrencies, how it has been embraced. There also been skepticism about, for example, large-scale education. How do regular people get to understand this very complicated technology if they do not, for example, are part of the group that is this focus of this study? People are also skeptical about the very risky, speculative nature of this technology, especially for people with limited disposable income, and also and primarily about the potential for exploitation for illicit activities, since these transactions do not pass through the guardrails of the traditional financial system. So other concerns that people have include environmental issues, because the consensus mechanism that I spoke about earlier require extensive energy, and it leaves carbon footprints that is probably going to be challenged or very challenging for the environment. There's also a very serious concern about the co-optation of these decentralized systems by large institutions, and causing or replicating neo-colonial financial structures. But despite, of course, these skepticism and concerns, the adoption of cryptocurrencies and blockchain is on the rise globally. So what is the significance of this research? One, to fulfill the knowledge gap as it relates to the social potential of blockchain for racialized people, and also to focus on the Caribbean and diasporic people, where there's a large knowledge gap about the social implications of these technologies. So for that purpose, because of that reason, this research centers Black knowledge from the global South, and it also challenges dominant power structures in knowledge production by highlighting the lived experiences of Caribbean people and amplifying intellectual contribution to global debates on blockchain adoption. So it offers this counter narrative to exclusion or misrepresentation of the global South in academic discourse. Now, moving on to the theoretical framework for this work, I'm broadly interested really in racial capitalism, which takes up the world political economy in relationships and institutions that are saturated by race and gender. So this theoretical framework highlights how race became a defining factor of who is valued and who is not valued, and how it is integrated basically systemically into the institution and policies and politics of nations right across the, especially the global North. So so falling back on Cedric Robinson's work of 2000, this Black Marxism, this work fundamentally connects between capitalism, race, and inequality. So Cedric's work talks about capitalism as inherently racist, that are shaped by histories of racism and colonialism, and how capitalism exploits racialized labor and established racial hierarchies, keeping marginalized groups economically subjugated. So, that work by Cedric Robinson allows me to make connections between modern exclusions in the financial systems, and also allows me to pay attention to the risk of discrimination being replicated in the digital asset ecosystem. Now, neocolonial exploitation persists in global politics, economics, and social systems. Black and marginalized communities in the Caribbean and diaspora is no different. They remain entrenched in systemic marginality despite geopolitical independence. And so I pull on the work of Maria Logness. I hope I have not mispronounced her name too badly. I pull on her work because she speaks about resistance as the most effective element or tool among marginalized groups to build solidarity and coalition and to embrace diversity. Colonialism and marginalization of Black people extend beyond physical and economic realm. Mental colonization was a deliberate tool for submission and control. European colonizers used mental colonization to justify slavery and to enforce extraction of unpaid labor. And to support this conversation, I pulled on Tejumola, whose framework explores the concept of colonization of the mind. Lugon's link Black marginalization to exploitative mental habits and racist norms. They argue that resistance focuses on challenging colonial structures through subjectivity and intersubjectivity. So her work is very useful for me to understand the power of communities to resist hegemonic norms and to advocate agency among marginalized groups. Now, this is a draft of my conceptual framework for the work that I'm doing. At the top, it talks about the intersection of blockchain technologies, financial inclusion, and socioeconomic empowerment within racialized community in the global South, specifically in the Caribbean and diaspora. And that will be investigated by field study, lit review. And then I have in very tiny writing there what I call, and I know in non-quantitative work, we don't talk too much about variables, but I have here the economic empowerment as a dependent variable, the my moderating variable, I'm sorry, is the technology literature and literacy, and then I have a modulating variance being the financial exclusion. And I don't have to go through all of that because it's on the board. It basically captures how I conceptualize this work. And as I said, it's a work in progress, and I am up to revision as I go through. All right. In terms of the research design and methodology, the guiding principle that I followed was based on Tuck and Gauchard's principle of participating action research as a useful model to adapt when doing subjective research. For my work, I combined three approaches for data collection that will help in the triangulation of the results. So I have semi-structured interviews aiming to at least 10 to 20 members of this online group that I've described, 3 focus groups conducted with members of the same group, and then I have exploratory literature review on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So just quickly going through some of the research questions that I focused on, and to give you a sense of why I asked particular questions. So for example, for research question 1, what I wanted to understand was the pull and push factor that motivate people to participate in this online group. And so I would ask questions about their understanding of this group and why they joined. And of course, the relationship that they have with regular mainstream banking systems. For question number 2, I'm focusing on understanding the support that the group gives to one another and how this group became a place in the in which financial literacy is improved. So I would focus on the question, I would ask the question about their understanding of the motivation and objectives of the group and what they hope to learn and whether or not their professional background help in them engaging and benefiting and contributing to the group. Quickly, in research number 3 question, my focus was on exploring perceived mainstream narratives about cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and whether or not these narratives influenced how they make investment decisions and how they develop counter narratives to these mainstream conversations. And so I asked them about what do you find most valuable in these exchanges that takes place within the group, and how do you understand mainstream narratives about cryptocurrencies. In examining the potential relationship between the groups' discussion and their health and religion, because they do have, and why I asked this question was because the group have secondary offshoot groups that focus on health and on religion, and so I wanted to understand if there is an interconnection between these 2 other groups and the investment groups, investment group that is the focus of this research. So I asked them what is their understanding or their thinking about relationships with these groups. And you know, so question number 5 explores the extent to which gender influences group dynamics, the challenges that women face and the benefits of participating in the group from a gendered perspective. And so I would ask them about the extent to which gender impact how they are able to participate in this group. In terms of the focus group, the expectation is that I will have 3 groups, I've done 2 of the 3 groups so far. And the aim is to look at women's only, men only, and a mixed gender group. The idea is to explore gender specific and mixed gender dynamics within the community. So that was the aim of that. In terms of the lit review, I just did a general Google Scholar search looking for articles on blockchain, and there was 667,000 results, more than 100,000 relating to blockchain in the Global South, and just over 4,000 for the Caribbean. So this will essentially form the areas in which I would be focusing on to get that kind of exploratory lit review on blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. The information that is there on the Caribbean is related primarily to blockchain and tourism, blockchain and regional integration, and so on, interregional trade. I have not seen anything that specifically speaks to blockchain and the social dimension as it relates to marginalized groups. All right, so moving quickly to the research findings, and I've organized them thematically that aligns with the research questions. So in terms of financial empowerment and education, group members say they are motivated by the potential for financial independence, wealth building, and creating generational wealth. The group focuses on knowledge, providing knowledge to its members, and with the aim of identifying potentially sound cryptocurrencies investment strategies, and they also focus on wealth management. Members join the group to overcome traditional financial struggles, to learn from experienced peers, and to access supportive learning environment. In terms of distrust of traditional financial system, as was one of my questions, as I said earlier, the general results from this question is that traditional banks are perceived as exploitative. They're slow and untrustworthy, and they have high fees and limited accessibility for marginalized communities. Cryptocurrency is viewed as an alternative avenue to bypass traditional barriers, reduce reliance on banks, and gain control over professional finances. So members do value the decentralized peer-to-peer protocols that are part of the blockchain technology, because it provides a counterbalance to the centralization of the traditional financial institutions that have historically excluded or marginalized them. In terms of collaboration and community, the group thrives on collaborative learning, with experienced members mentoring newcomers and everyone contributing to collective understanding. The group is seen as providing emotional and technical support, not just for the crypto space, but also in their personal lives. They do support each other on a personal level. So it's like a community space that provide that level of connection that is needed for that collaborative effort and for that system of resistance that is needed. The group leverages collective intelligence and crowd learning to make informed decisions. So, like, for example, if there's something new about cryptocurrency and blockchain, they basically, if there's a program or that they can participate in, they would group fund that program, and then one or two persons would attend that program and come back and teach the rest of the participants in the group, and to maximize investment opportunities. And so it's like a teach the teacher or train the trainer kind of approach. How do they overcome challenges and barriers? It says members highlight a difficulty in identifying legitimate cryptocurrency projects, because there are legitimate currencies and there are what we call scam currencies or meme coins that really do not have any real world value except for the sentiment and culture that people will pay and pay for. Basically, it's like gambling. It's your culture, it's the sentiments, it's your belief, it's the community that really is the value behind these currencies. These are the currencies that the people in this group try to stay out of, because oftentimes those currencies would just disappear on a whim. They are concerned about issues such as imposed transaction limits, because there have been situations, even here in Canada, where there has been notification sent to them regarding the limit that they can spend on cryptocurrency for the year. So they're concerned about that. They're also concerned about legal uncertainties and lack of regulation, and because outside of regulation, cryptocurrency is really almost like the Wild West. So they are really eager to have that kind of regulation in place. So yeah, and it says here that some people are still facing challenges understanding advanced blockchain information. Now, the group emphasizes equality as it relates to men and women being actively involved and contributing to this group. It says all contributions are equally valued based on knowledge, not gender or race, which creates a very inclusive environment that is, fair to everyone who has any knowledge or require any knowledge at any particular time. Gender is not something that they look at or consider. The group includes members from different Caribbean countries and its diaspora, but they're united with a shared vision of financial empowerment. In terms of evolving perceptions of cryptocurrencies, it says initially they were skeptical about cryptocurrencies based on narratives about criminality and scam. But because there is this global move towards, adoption by large institutions, credible financial institutions, and by government, this optimism has basically shifted as we have these institutional players coming on board. Members rely heavily on independent research to counter misleading mainstream narratives. And they, as I said earlier, they tend to focus on cryptocurrencies that are tangible, that has real world application and show potential for future growth, as I said earlier, inspired by what Bitcoin has done over time. In terms of looking at the health and finance correlation, the financial independence is what they're after, but they see mental, physical, and spiritual well-being as essential pillars that sustain, that will allow them to have and to enjoy the financial independence that they're looking for. So financial freedom is pursued, but not just as a means to uplift the individual, but also in terms of, as I said, generational wealth and community support. Spiritual beliefs and practices help members to manage the emotional challenges of the volatile crypto markets, because sometimes you put your funds in it in the morning and in the evening you could lose everything. So that kind of volatility can be very emotional. And the group together will huddle and support each other. There are times, for example, when they indicated that some of them have lost their currencies and so they need that kind of support in going through that kind of crisis. In terms of professional and practical contribution, members bring diverse professional skills. Some of them are IT specialists, some are real estate managers, some of them are trading. They trade full-time, not only cryptocurrencies, but like stocks and bonds and options. So the background, the contribution of members' background broadened the group perspectives they perceive, and the problem-solving capacity or capabilities of the group as a whole. So members complement group resources with personal research, creating a culture of continuous self-improvement. Now, members recognize the growing global euphoria around blockchain as a disruptive technology. But as I said earlier, they're concerned about regulations and how that might shape access, how that might protect or not protect scams, whether it is illicit or official scams, and how power it's seemingly being co-opted into powerful hands through these stock exchange ETFs and those other investment tools that are more familiar by the ordinary people, that these people who would have been otherwise afraid to trade in cryptocurrencies can now go through these large institutions and buy these exchange traded funds, which are really the same cryptocurrencies, but are bundled in a safer space that they recognize and trust these financial institutions. So In terms of the long-term resilience and vision, the members focus on creating lasting financial stability. Many of them have vision boards that keep them focused on their goals. So, you know, some of the members envision blockchain even replacing some of the traditional financial systems in the longer run. Now, in terms of the demographic results, the the group is essentially more of an older cohort. If you notice, we have up to like 60% of the people are between 55 and 65. And then we have that group that is between 45 and 54, which is counter to common, common sense understanding that these kinds of volatile investment instruments would be more attractive to younger people because they have a longer runway in terms of their getting returns from these investments. It's really surprising that we're thinking here of older people as being the main cohort for this kind of investment and investment strategy. In terms of gender, they're more female than male. Which again is counterintuitive to common understanding, because we would think that male would be the ones that would be more eager to take these kinds of risks and to study about blockchain and to invest in these kind of precarious instruments. But here we have it. The majority in the group is female, and obviously older female. In terms of the occupation, some of them are like full-time traders, foreign exchange traders, real estate investors, and 50% of them are in the field of education. The average participation time in the group, many of them are from the beginning, from 5 years, because this group essentially started in the COVID era when people were at home not doing anything. This was when the idea of forming this group and investing in cryptocurrency became a thing. So many of them were there from the beginning. And another huge amount was like 4 years. And then you have the newcomers, which are 3 years old, which is not really newcomers anymore. All right, so I want to then move quickly to the affinity diagram that I've put together. Essentially, the affinity diagram is helping me to find relationships and patterns between concepts and ideas, and to organize verbal information into visual patterns, which helps me to align the responses even tighter around the key areas that the research is concerned about and the research questions. So it's a visual representation of these responses. It's something that we use very a lot in like business analysis and project management, where you're trying to sort of get a sense of what the affinity is around certain topics. So for example, and I'm not going to go through all of these because it's right there on the screen. It tells you essentially in brief snippets what are the responses relating to the various areas. So for example, the purpose and objectives is really, they're talking about this decentralized equalizer that the cryptocurrency provides, and how resilient there is. The whole business of knowledge empowers, and how it also provides opportunity for diversification of investment and wealth generation that we talked about, and empowerment of communities. In relation to the traditional financial systems, again, as I said earlier, they talked about the high fee, lack of transparency, and here they're talking about low savings returns, and banks blocking cryptocurrency transactions. And so I'm going to just leave that there on the board for a little bit so we can get a sense of what were the ideas that were condensed in this affinity diagram to answer some of the questions. If you notice right down here, there is a concern about these ETFs that I talked about, and also central bank digital currencies that are being developed by a lot of the by a lot of the banks nowadays. The government, sorry, not I lost my thought that, but yeah, a lot of the governments across the world, including Jamaica, where I'm from, have started to develop central bank digital currency, which really is a digital replication of the fiat money that we are now using. So that is also a part of the indication that we are picking up that there is this transition to decentralized DeFi, which is decentralized financing. So the banks, it would seem, are also putting in place the infrastructure to transition into the digital ecosystem or be left behind. In terms of the benefits for blockchain and cryptocurrencies, these snippet answers talked about the whole business of tools for wealth creation, and they do have specific coins that they actually focus on because of the level of research and the level of global adoption that is surrounding those currencies, including one outside of Bitcoin, that is, that including the ones that are our neighbors to the south are earmarking as potential reserves for their country to cover for the enormous debt, international debt that they are facing. So they're looking at these assets as potential reprieve for those the debt gap that is there.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, and I will take that quickly. So here we're talking about these are just continuation of the same thing. So I'm going to move right into the future direction. The future directions or potential areas of future research. So I'm saying that we can, in terms of future research, conduct similar studies in other regions in the global south to compare how racialized communities adapt blockchain technologies and how cultural influences on blockchain adoption intersect with local tradition and digital financial tools. And the ultimate really is to take a longitudinal approach to looking at the sustainability of the economic empowerment that is envisioned by this group through blockchain and how participating in these communities affect socioeconomic mobility and financial independence. So this is really just a summary of all that I've said. I don't think I need to spend the time to do that. So I just want to thank you for your attention, and I am obviously open to any questions or observations or recommendations that you would have.
Thank you so much, Violet. Do you want to unshare your screen?
Yes,
So
let
that
me
we
do
see
that. Let me
everyone?
do
Yeah.
that. Is it gone?
Yeah, you're good. And so you can see all the hands clapping. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Violet.
thank you so much.
This was a really interesting talk that has me thinking about things in ways that I hadn't, sort of thought about when I think about the issue of cryptocurrency and blockchain, especially in the Caribbean, and the different interpretations that people have. Some very surprising and illuminating things that you highlighted is definitely the gender and age gap or discrepancy that we would think would be associated to people who use cryptocurrency, particularly with the very gendered language that we have in the Western world here when it comes to crypto bros or Bitcoin guys. You know what I mean? And there's like something very masculine and in a very sort of toxic masculine sort of understanding when it comes to these economic arrangements. So that was really fascinating. I have a lot of questions. And I know that the panel, the group also has many, but I'll start with one and then we will see how things go.
I'll try to answer them as best I can.
Okay. And some are comments are just considerations, like if it has come through, like I know you are final stages of getting your research, done. So I definitely don't want to add too much, but maybe, yeah, I want to know if this has come up or if there's something you will consider. So, I was reading not too long ago that they're starting to have more proliferation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining in the Caribbean. And I think I remember reading in 2023, there was like a place in Jamaica that was starting Bitcoin mining in particular. And I wonder if those the mining industry coming to the places where cryptocurrency is being used as an equal footing or a equalizing sort of standpoint for financial gain, although with some critical issues that you've brought up. If the environmental, first of all, degradation that comes through that mining, if that has started to maybe shift the way in which people are thinking about, and also the labor issues that would come with that kind of extractive measure of mining in the Caribbean, if that would maybe highlight a different view of how to use cryptocurrency, or maybe put it in a different light. And I do believe the answer lies around class as well, because you highlight that a lot of people who play around with cryptocurrency have a particular like disposable income, or at least a little bit more than folks that would be perhaps working in the mine. So yeah, if there's some linkage there that you're seeing, or that you see formulating, maybe that's like past the framework of your research.
Okay, so a couple of things. So when we talk about crypto mining, what we're really talking about is that consensus mechanism, that mathematical calculation that has to be done in order to create consensus around allowing transactions. So it's really an industry that requires extremely highly qualified mathematicians and computer experts. Now, I have also heard about the positioning of these mining plants in so-called underdeveloped countries, because I guess to avoid immediate carbon footprints in the advanced countries, which, as we know, will have serious degradatory implications for the lifestyle and the environment of these communities. So yeah, it's a very big concern that people have. And in fact, a lot of the crypto mining has now been they're transitioning in from the mechanism that is called proof of work to staking, proof of staking, meaning that you no longer have to do these mathematical calculations, but that the consensus for approval of transaction come about as a result of a staking mechanism, meaning you get a certain amount of reward of the particular coin that is being minted. So if it's Bitcoin, you get a fraction of a Bitcoin for this consensus, rather than coming through this mathematical calculations. But yeah, that's an interesting point. But I think it's a little outside the scope of this work, and would be an interesting view for secondary research. So I'm really thankful for that. I'll take a note of that.
Thank you so much, Violet. Anybody else has some questions, thoughts, praise? Clifton, yes, go ahead.
Hi, Violet. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Clifton.
Unfortunately, I'm a starving student and I only came at the end of the presentation, but this material is quite fascinating, especially from a fellow Jamaican. So thank you for representing the island.
Thank you.
As you know, and when I read the bio for the presentation, I was telling some of my friends about it. Especially a lot of people in the Jamaican community are still very skeptical, scared, have a lot of trepidation about cryptocurrency. And I just want to see in your research, is that paradigm now changing of the perception of crypto? Are we getting a little bit more comfortable with it? How are you finding sort of more? I know you talked a lot about it's still a little bit of a class system, but the everyday person or like the lay person, what are they thinking now of the currency? And are you seeing more investment? Are you seeing less skepticism of what the future of what crypto holds?
To be very honest with you, I think there's still a large level of skepticism in the Jamaican environment, primarily because, you know, we come out of a history, and in fact, we still are in a situation where scamming is very rife. A lot of scamming happens in Jamaica. We all know that. And as a result of that, a lot of people are not eager to get into investments that do not, that seems to be so volatile and undefined, because when you talk about consensus mechanism and peer-to-peer transfer of value and not going through the banking system, people start to ask, so who is in control? Where do I go if I lose my money? That kind of thing. And so the majority of Jamaicans they are staying away, and that's why I thought that this group that has come together is such a fascinating opportunity to understand the thinking of Jamaicans and Caribbean people outside of that historical notion of scamming, and, you know, because we know that we have a long history of scamming. We talk about the people who have gone with people's money, and in many instances. So they're not very eager to get involved in this thing, which, like I said, why this group is so fascinating.
Yeah, and I just want to comment too. I just remember from my grandparents and some of my ancestors, unless they could really, you know, a lot of them didn't even have bank accounts, I remember. So they really like tangible items that they could hold in their hand, and trying to explain this concept to them, they were like, well, and I can't hold it, I can't touch it. That's a lot of has to do with it too, the abstract ability of crypto. But it's a fascinating topic to me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Violet. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Iffy, you're next.
Hi, Violet.
Hi, Iffy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your presentation. I've been thoroughly educated by you today, so thank you. So I have a few questions, and I will do my best to put them all together. Now, I have a background in finance, and so I remember working in banking back in the day. What Clifton said about these conversations about trying to encourage people to, like, even something as simple as buying stocks, even if it's in the bank and it's supposed to be safe, was always very difficult for the older generation. So I think my first question for you is, I'm looking for you to kind of locate yourself in this research in a way. Did you have problems? Did you encounter any difficulties in banking? Was there anything like that that happened?
For myself as a person, if I have had discriminatory practices against me,
that would have made you, for example, be more inclined to go online and do this kind of WhatsApp group with other people and sort of, you know, move away from the traditional kind of financial institutions? That's my first question. The second question, I'm going to block them all together so I can disappear. The second question that I have is, and this somehow connects with the question that Clifton was asking about how older people are a lot more skeptical. I'm curious, and you may not have the answer, but how was that education? Like, how were they able to overcome that and be involved to the point that they're able to figure out the technology on their own? And I asked this question for my mother because I'm trying to get her to do stuff more online, and she's terrified. And the third question that I have for you, again, also sort of revolves around getting the people on the platform. Is it like a referral system? Do people refer other people to get in? Do you have to have like a referral code? Do you have to code, or do you have to know somebody else in the WhatsApp group for you to? How do you get verified to be able to join the group? And does that, if there is a verification system, does that help somehow to kind of build that sense of legitimacy or something like that? So yeah, those are my questions.
All right, so let's see if I can go through them. So in terms of personal issue with the banking system, I can honestly say that I have not experienced any particular kind of obvious marginalization or pushing back in these banking system, primarily because I think what we would consider quote unquote status, social status. So like back home, I was like chief, and I was obviously professors. I was a professor at universities, and that gives you a level of status. So when you walk into the banking system, it really does give a sense of give me a sense that they recognize that this is, someone of quote unquote worth. So no, I have not really experienced any personal pushback in the banking system. Now, have I tried to probably do any sort of large transactions? I don't know how that would feel or what that would feel like in Canada, but I know back home, no. In terms of older people coming together in this group, the truth of the matter is there are people in this group that, as I said, they're like 65 years old. There is this particular lady who, when you speak to her, her voice trembles, but she is one of the most educated among the female cohort in this group. She trades stocks, she trades options, and she obviously doesn't work, so she has the time to do all of that. They take the time to learn because they have this drive, this ethos to create generational wealth and stop selling their labor for money. So yeah, age has not been a factor in this group at all. As I said, a lot of them are over the 55 age group. So yeah, in terms of the joining the group, I think that was a question you asked. There is a referral system in place. So you join through referral only. And when you join, there is some version of a KYC, know your customer process, where you have to come on, show your face, say who you are, what you do, so that everybody can understand who the newest members are and can engage in that way. So yes, there is a KYC members only kind of protocol that this group functions under. Yeah.
Thank you. Mohammed, go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Mohammed.
Yes, Violet, for sharing your work with us. Really very exciting work. I should also say that I got really educated by your presentation.
Oh,
I consider myself a crypto illiterate, so it's good to listen and to get some ideas about how this technology operate. I have two questions, which is really about knowing more about the sort of and dynamic and what I think would be interesting to probably focus more on, maybe in terms of your future research. And one is, I think it would be interesting to look at how ideas that are coming from the global center regarding this technology are getting into a relationship with local ideas. So when you were talking about culture, when you were talking about group relations, informal trust networks, and what people are doing to make this work, I think it would be interesting to explore, even if they were, let's say, inspired by Bitcoin, by ideas that are coming from outside, how they are able to take what is local and then blend it to make it something that is applicable in that particular context. I think people who are studying the contestation of ideas, and they will be very interested in looking at how this could be one context in which people are using their ideational agency to say that, yes, we may get the inspiration from the global, but we are doing something with these ideas to make it our own.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, I think it will also be interesting, because when you're talking about the participant in this study, it seems to me that they all belong to, I would say, somehow a professional class, right? They are educated. When you gave some of the profile of these members, I mean, in the context that I study in Sierra Leone, in West Africa, we will consider them to be the educated class. So the question here is, are there other groups that do not belong to this social category of people, and what is the relationship between these groups? What I'm trying to get at with this question is to explore whether with this new technology, we might see that it is not only providing an opportunity for economic empowerment, it could also reinforce class inequality within society. Maybe those that are already privileged, already educated, may be in a better position to take more advantage of this opportunity. And what is their relationship with those that do not have that advantage or that privileged position?
Well, if I can answer backwards your questions, the truth is that this group doesn't reach out to people and say, "Hey, do you want to learn about crypto? Let's join." The participants they have to show that level of interest and then join through the referral program. So in terms of how do we help non-members in terms of learning this technology, the question is, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I don't think that's the focus of the group. So yeah, one of the challenges, as I mentioned in my presentation, was how is it that the broader society is one of the problems I think I mentioned is that broader society, they don't get that opportunity to educate because there's no public information available that you can say, okay, go learn about blockchain. And the truth is that if you're going to invest in an asset, you have to understand the supporting mechanisms. And so blockchain being the supporting mechanism is really a difficult topic to absorb. And so until cryptocurrency and blockchain become second nature, because that's where full full involvement of the larger financial institution, when you don't have to think about the technology behind the instrument, that's when you really do have full adoption of so maybe these people will have to wait until, for example, the banks start offering cryptocurrencies, the traditional banks, and custody of your cryptocurrencies, which they are moving towards, because the truth is that as I described, the fintech requirements of the banking infrastructure is that they have to position themselves to operate within this technology. And so fintech, financial technology will require them to also adapt and provide opportunities for people who do not understand the technicalities behind the assets. It's just like how you don't think about what happens when you send money to Jamaica or back home. You don't think about what happens when you swipe your card. Until cryptocurrency become that second nature, these people will be basically be left behind and will probably be the second or third cohort of people that would be embracing cryptocurrencies. Right now, this group is front running the institutions. They're getting these cryptocurrencies dirt cheap because the institutions have not yet come in, because there's no regulatory framework that would cause that to happen. My battery is dying. If you could give me 1 second to go pick up my battery, I'm sorry I have to do this. Just please.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. Yes. So I'm not sure if I fully answer all elements of your question, but yeah. If there are any other questions? Did I answer everything you asked, or am I still outstanding?
You started with the second question. The first question was, I was interested in the contestation
about the
of
global
ideas from
center.
the global and from the local, yes.
All right, so I'm not sure I understand when you say global center, what you're actually referring to, because there's no global center for cryptocurrencies. These are really just technologies that have been developed by different individuals. So a lot of us do not think about cryptocurrency as just this, intangible asset. We think about it as the technology. So when you buy into cryptocurrencies, you're really buying into the technology. So for example, there is a coin that is responsible, or will be, in fact, Walmart has started using this coin to help in their what you call that, their um, their purchasing, their procurement process, right? So this coin has been the one that it will help you to track the movement of your goods and services, your supply chain. That's the word I've been searching for. Walmart has been using them as part of their supply chain mechanism. So these currencies you should really look at them as technologies. It's like a Google or an Apple or whatever is happening in those spaces. You can't really feel and touch these things, a lot of these things, but they have value. And so that's what the focus is. There's no really one global center for cryptocurrencies. And yeah, so that implies that it really doesn't have any secondary or local centers either. Yeah, it's just anybody who has an internet and has a cell phone, you can purchase cryptocurrency anywhere in the world. No inhibitions. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed. If nobody else has a question, I have a last question that I would love to pose. Okay, then I might. Okay, so it's gonna take a little connecting the dots here, but I'm really curious as to what you think of what your knowledge, your deep knowledge of this, what can translate in terms of an answer. So what I thought was really fascinating is that you were talking about how some folks were looking at cryptocurrency as a method to reprieve from national debt, right? I thought that was incredibly interesting, especially, and it would fit in the narrative of being skeptical of banks, given the way in which history has taught us how, imperial powers can just go into the coffer in the banks and take over. There's wide specific histories of the Caribbean, but I'm specifically thinking of like Haiti and the occupation in the 20s, where America came and basically looted everything and imposed their own banking system, and Canadians too. And so there was like a looting of the coffers that had to, contributed to a larger sort of further sort of indentured, if you will, to the West. And so the link with banking and these types of imperial powers is very strong, and using, cryptocurrency as something that can remedy that and basically get them out of this pseudo like imperial colonial economic servitude is such a powerful visual that really inspires a lot of hope. But I am a little skeptical, as I'm sure they are, particularly given the very rapidly shifting role of cryptocurrency when it comes to shifting regime. And I'm talking, specifically looking at Trump and the way that his investments and his people are really highlighting the investments of cryptocurrency, ironically, as like a under his nationalist discourse, and in trying to let go of a larger sort of NAFTA or world like globalized order. But it's really weird how it fits in his national discourse. And my fear is that, like, would that only serve nationalist discourse for the powerful? Because I just don't trust it in fascist hands. And what are the concerns around the fact that, I guess it could be used for good, but it can use to be bad. But what does that mean in terms of like global politics? What does that mean in terms of the reverberation of political structures in the West and how they affect the Caribbean and the global South? So I know I'm like going all over the place, but if you have any thoughts around that, I would be really
So that's an interesting point that you've raised, because the truth is that since we have this pro-crypto government in the United States, there has been a lot of euphoria around how they are going to make cryptocurrency, a recognizable um, source of value that will be used in the National Reserve, for example. That's a significant proposition when you're thinking about an asset that is really it's really very new and untested, that you are going to use that as part of your national reserve as a way, as you said, to enforce nationalism. Because if you were to do that, it would mean, for example, the China of the world would not have enough of this Bitcoin to take or to use or to own if you are going to gobble up everything as part of your national reserve. So yeah, there is that level of growing uncertainty about how these nationalistic approaches are going to impact. For example, again, the whole business of the freedom of creating your own currency, cryptocurrency overnight. Just last week, Trump created a coin called Trump that in 2 hours garnered up around $4 to $6 billion worth of currency. There's no value to this currency. It's one of those meme coins that you in like 2 days afterward, the value just plummeted. So all of those people who invested in these coins, have lost their money essentially, and the whole cryptocurrency environment tumbled as a result of that. So you're asking a good question. These kinds of uncertainty, these kinds of, I don't want to call it scam because I don't want to be disrespectful to the president, but you understand what I'm saying? These kinds of coin that have no value is really driven by sentiments and name brand that disrupts the whole global cryptocurrency ecosystem, and by extension has the potential of disrupting the general financial systems. And that's a critical area of concern that I think people are having now with this immediate Trump Tower. And then his wife, Melania, developed another currency the next day, and that went up to $2 billion with a B, and is now selling for only $2. His coin went up to $72 for one, and it has no value. Hers is now sitting at $2 something. But the more critical point that I'm making is that this space, as I said earlier, is like the Wild West. And so it is really very concerning. And there's a lot of trepidation regarding how do I, as I said, as part of the findings for the research, how do I invest in this? How do I know the scam coins from the other coins? And so the learning and teaching and self-education that is happening is to counter that and to try to find safe spaces. And like I said, the focus has been on coins that have real world use, like the one that Walmart is using. There's another banking coin that a lot of them are invested in because the IMF of the world, the Bank of International Settlements, the Bank of America, they have started to use this coin. And that is one of the greater holdings of this group. So yeah, I think your question is very legitimate. I don't think I've answered it completely, but I, like you, am really very concerned about this nationalism and this lack of. So, for example, coins that are created in the United States will not be taxed. Will not be taxed. And so, what you find now is a lot of people, some of which are in the group, are seeking to relocate to the United States or open US accounts to avoid the taxation, because Trump has promised that, whereas in Canada, any capital gain above $250,000 will be taxed up to 60%. So people are just fleeing, their assets to the United States, where Trump promised no taxes on local currencies. Part of his nationalist approach. Yeah.
That's incredibly fascinating. That's yeah. And it brings to mind a lot of things. And to go back to a point that Mohammed was making too, it reproduces the same sort of class structures, right?
Yes.
Like if there's no taxation, the rich get richer, you know what I mean? So like it's
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, because in the Caribbean, in the diaspora, as I said earlier, people do not have disposable income to invest into these volatile, risky investments. They're thinking that the little $2 I have, I need it for food. And so they get excluded, right? They get excluded from this potential growth in economic empowerment we're talking about.
Fascinated work. We can keep going for hours, but unfortunately our time is done. Thank you so much, Violet. This was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everybody. And I see my friend Kristen that is there. She was one of my students, so I'm really happy she was able to join. Melina Ferreira, she has my name. She's my sister-in-law. And Jackie, who is my best sister friend. They all came. And Iffy, ooh, how could I have done this without Iffy? So thank you so much for each and every one of you who have participated in this work. And have spent the time listening to me. And I also want to thank Bianca, who has really gone out of beyond the call of duty to make this happen, and Rebecca for her, accommodation, because I've had some changes at short notice. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank
Violet,
you, Violet.
Violet.
Sorry.
Clifton.
I was just gonna say, Violet, stay out of the wild, wild west. I love that. Stay out of the wild, wild west, Violet. Great job, my sister.
Thank you.
Thank you, Violet.
Thank you. So that's the end of our Tubman Talk today. Thank you again, Violet. I just want to highlight that we have another Tubman Talk next week on January 30th. This time we're doing a roundtable. It's a Tubman Talk, a roundtable on the possibilities and constraint of researching and writing about African women. We have on the panel Dr. Rose Nyenge, Dr. Vanessa Oliveira, Dr. Husina Dinani, and Dr. Annie Bunting, who will be here next week at 3 o'clock. I believe it is in person. And make sure that you check out our website and get on our newsletter for all our really exciting Black History Month event. Again, thank you, Violet, and I wish
Thank
all
you
of
so much.
a
Thank you
lovely
so much. Thank you.